All right. Hey guys, this is Will here, and this is episode 3 of Will's interviews featuring Vince. Is it Corazza? Corazza?
Corazza.
Corazza. The voice of Mamoru slash Darian Shields and Ale in slash Alan in Sailor Moon. So that's who he voiced on the show. So yeah, I have my questions pulled up here. So
Right.
I'm going to first ask you them. So my first question is, when did you start voice acting and how did you become involved in it?
I went to actually Ryerson University, which is now called, what is it, Metropolitan University of Toronto or something. They just renamed it. I went to Ryerson in Toronto, along with Linda Ballantyne, who
Yep.
was
I actually did an interview with her. That was the previous episode.
all right
That's
on.
ironic.
Yeah, Linda and I graduated in the same class. We went to theater school together, university together. So that's kind of where I was introduced to it. I mean, it's always a loaded question because, in my opinion, I sort of feel like I was really introduced as a little kid, like most people, watching animation and watching cartoons and imitating the voices that I heard and that I just loved. And
Yep.
but then, as far as it being a career, I went to university to study acting, and in second year, we got introduced to Roland Parliament, who I'm sure
Yep.
Linda might have mentioned, and you've probably heard of Roland.
Yep. I've heard of him.
Yeah, Melvin, and
Yep.
he was the original director of the first episodes of Sailor Moon when we were dubbing, and yeah, he brought me in, hired me to play the role of Alan, and then eventually I transitioned into taking over Tuxedo Mask.
Yep.
But that's where it all started. Was in second year of Ryerson. He came in. He was a guest professor there and taught us voice acting, which and microphone. It was called microphone technique. And I remember seeing it on the calendar and the schedule and thinking, microphone technique? What? You just hold a mic or whatever? I had no idea that it was voiceover. He introduced us to that whole world, and it just was something that I absolutely loved. It just came naturally. Although what was fascinating too is all the little nuances and details and techniques that there are in terms of creating characters and doing it in front of a microphone. One of the guest teachers that he brought in to teach us was Susan Roman.
Yep. Voice of
Yep.
Koto, Lita.
Yeah, so that was crazy too. And then all of us, years later, we graduated, and all of us were working together on the Sailor Moon show. And then here we are, 25. What is it? 25, 30? I don't even know.
Yeah, 26, I believe.
Yeah, I've lost track of the years. All I know is I did not have gray hair. I didn't have a gray beard back when all this started.
Yeah.
And here we are, decades later, and we still talk about it and still live those memories, and we're still friends and see each other from time to time, which is awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, so that's how it all began. And then I basically graduated from university, got an agent. They sent me out for my very first voiceover audition, and I booked it.
That was actually my second question. What was your first role?
Oh, right. I forgot that you sent me the questions. My first role, it wasn't an actual animated role or a video game. It was actually voicing a commercial for the World Cup back in, oh my God, 1994. So I was voicing, and I voiced, basically it was for MasterCard. It was a beautiful commercial, and it was these little boys playing soccer, and it was me talking as their older Italian self. So as an older Italian man, remembering his love as a little kid for soccer. And
that's interesting.
Yeah, and so it was a really sweet commercial. And what was fun about what I really loved about it, I mean, I've gone on to do thousands of commercials and promos and stuff like that. But commercials are typically, and especially promos, are typically you're selling a product, that kind of thing. But what I loved about that first job is I really wasn't. I mean, yes, it was a MasterCard commercial, but it was really about the World Cup, and I got to play a character. I got to play this older Italian man.
Mm-hmm.
So that was sort of my first profession, in my opinion, my first professional role, you know, as a voiceover
Yeah.
actor, because it wasn't like introducing the new Honda CRV or the, you know, I mean, it wasn't that kind of thing. It was, I wasn't selling anything. It was just me talking about my love for soccer and getting into a character, which was fun. And then after that, my first animated role was playing Dance on the Ace Ventura Pet Detective cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
That was my very first animated
Yes.
job. Yeah.
And so how is it like to be like Ale and Memorial? Like you can can you still do the voice of those two?
I could. I can't really think of anything that Alan said specifically. I mean, but with Darian, you know, I'm always like, "Hey, meatball head," you know. That's pretty much.
Alan would be like the Doom Tree and like those.
Yeah. I mean, I just remember I had a voice like, "Hey, Ann," you know,
Mm-hmm.
a raspier kind of sound. It was a little more kind of like that kind of a thing, but I don't remember anything specific that he said.
Yeah.
I also, whenever people ask me to quote Tuxedo Mask, I go, the guy always showed up and gave these like long monologues that just didn't even half the time make sense to me. It's just, we were dubbing and I would read them and go, what is this dude talking about? And then I'd throw a rose or something and, you know, and then take off. So I always found Tuxedo Mask was hilarious to me.
Yeah.
Just in terms of the stuff that he would say. But yeah, I mean, the phrase that always sticks is Darian saying, "Hey, meatball head." So
I assume now is your favorite line to say as him.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about it being my favorite line. It just, that was the line I just remember saying hundreds of times playing that. Like, you know, I feel like every episode pretty much that was a line that I had to say at some point.
Mm-hmm. Sure was. And so you already told me how you auditioned. You already told me what your favorite line was, but did you enjoy like voicing the characters?
Oh, of course, absolutely. It was so much fun. I mean, part of the fun of the show, you know, we didn't know what it was going to become. So at the time when we were starting out, you know, none of us were like, you know, recording our roles thinking, oh my God, we're creating this incredible thing. Yeah, it was new to us. Dubbing was different and new, and taking this weird, you know, Japanese animation and you know, and it wasn't, I mean, as everybody knows now too, right? The cuts, the edits that they made were geared towards after school kids, whereas the original show aired, you know, at night in Japan and was like adults oriented. So we had no idea. I mean, I remember maybe 3 or 4 months in, Nicole showing up with some of the original footage and showing, and all of us were like, what? This is not at all the show that we thought we were making, in terms of like the way it was, you know, altered for after school for kids. But I just remember the thing that I loved the most was working with people, you know, getting the chance to work with Roland, who, you know, was originally my professor, and getting to work with, you know, Linda Valentine and Katie and Reno and Toby, all of us, you know, we knew each other from the business. So we were all friends and, you know, within the industry, and Tony Daniels, who played lots of different characters. And I mean, most of the time, Sabrina and I, when we were doing the Doomtree series, we would often record together, but that's very rare. You usually record on your own.
Interesting.
Especially with dubbing, just because they need to be clean in order for them to mix it afterwards. So I don't think Sabrina and I ever actually recorded together at the exact same time in the same room. I feel like maybe we did a couple times early on, but we were sometimes brought in together, and then like I would record stuff, and then she would go in and record the rest. And so it gave us a chance to kind of work off of each other in terms of hearing what the other person was doing. But for the most part, we almost always recorded on our own.
Yeah.
Once I took over Tuxedo Mask, I was always on my own. Once in a blue moon, I remember Tony Daniels. There was one day where I guess Tony and I must have had a lot of overlap together and stuff, and so we were in the studio together. But that was years later. I believe at that point, Louis Beaumander was directing, which another crazy. The small world of Sailor Moon for me. Louis was my original mentor, my original acting coach when I was a kid.
Interesting.
I went to the Leah Poslan's Theater when I was like 14, I believe it was 14 or 15. I started studying there, and he was my first sort of acting teacher. Prior to that, I had taken some commercial classes, things like that, audition techniques for, as a young kid. But Louis was my first real acting coach that taught me the foundation of being an actor, and was my mentor for years before I went to university. And so it was crazy to then, all of a sudden he was directing Sailor Moon episodes, the dubs, and here we were working together years later, which was great. It was such a cool full circle thing. I think that's part of my love for Sailor Moon the most was all the relationships, and for me, there was so many overlaps of like people I went to university with, people that I knew and loved in the business who were very close friends of mine, and then my original mentor being my director as well. So that's kind of my fondest memories of the show.
Yeah. So you probably know that Toby Proctor, Rio Mao, and Toby Proctor and Rio Romano.
Rio Romano.
Did the voice of Mamoru, but have you seen their
Oh yeah,
on him?
I've seen everybody. I've seen Robbie, Damon. I've seen the new stuff. I have not seen the new guy that did Alan in the new
his name is Brian Beacock.
Yeah, I haven't heard his stuff. I mean, Reno's a good friend. So is Toby. Robbie, I've met Robbie at conventions, and great guy. I love I think they're all incredibly talented. I'm sure Brandon Beacock is his name?
Brian,
who does Alan. I'm sure he's fantastic. I mean, I think everybody that did their jobs fantastic and were amazing. And I feel grateful and lucky that they decided to bring me on, and that I got to do that section as Alan. And then when that ended, they were like, "Hey, you know what? We think you'd make a great Tuxedo Mask for the rest of the series." And I was like, "I'm happy to do it." But I always thought everybody was fantastic in the show.
Speaking of the Doomtree ones with Alan, there's actually hold on one second.
Sure.
Actually, I collect VHS tapes, if you can see behind me.
Right on. Yeah.
There actually is a 4-tape box set of the Doomtree series.
Oh, wow.
Here's Alan.
That's old school, man. That is serious.
Oh, there he is. What would Alan say if he saw this?
Wow. That is crazy old school. VHS.
But yeah, like what would Alan say if he saw this?
I'm seeing it right now. I don't know what to say. I think that's awesome. I'm jealous.
Alan would Alan would totally be jealous of this. There's the first tape. Actually,
that's awesome.
Does appear on the 4th one. Yep.
Oh, right on.
There's Anne, but there's Alan right there.
Yeah. Oh, that's
there
cool.
He is.
Right on.
Yeah. Pretty cool.
That is very old school.
Yeah, I agree.
Do you have a machine to play it on?
Yeah.
Wow.
Several.
Wow, that's cool.
I know. I've told Linda Valentine that I have those, and I showed her some as well in the last episode of the series. I should say. Yeah. There wasn't anything else about Alan that I could show, because this is the only proof that I have of, I guess, him
That's
on home media. But yeah, you answered all my questions. So,
wow. You got it. You feel free to ask anything else. Is there anything else you want to know?
I don't think there's anything else that I have to ask at the moment because but wait, did you voice Momoru in the films for Sailor Moon?
Yeah, in the dubs. Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
In the original dubs. Yeah.
for the films, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I lose track and forget exactly, when or where, but I took over. I can't remember what episode I took over on as Tuxedo Mask, but then once I took over, I remained Tuxedo Mask for the rest of that series.
Interesting.
Yeah, all the rest of the Deke dubs and all the movies.
Speaking of
The Name of the Rose or whatever or something.
the Promise of the Rose.
There it is. Yeah, yeah,
And there's Tuxedo Mask.
yeah. There you go.
And the S one, which is Hearts and Ice.
Yep.
And the Supers one, which is the Black Dream Hole.
Right
If you
on.
had the chance to voice Mamoru in the Stars series, if it ever was dubbed, would you have done it?
Oh, absolutely. I think all of us. I mean, we've been asked that question many times. That would we have loved to have completed the final season? That I know. I think the reason they didn't do the final season is because it was a little too. It was a little too adult themed, and I think they kind of thought they weren't sure how they could edit it and cut it to stay, to then show it after school.
Mhm.
I mean, that's the theory or the stuff that I had heard. I don't know whether that's true or not. I don't really know the
I
whole
think
behind it.
it's true, but
Yeah, I think that's the
could be
history
wrong.
behind it. I think for all of us, we would have loved to have completed the story. And I think all of us would have loved to have come back and revoiced, when they renewed it and brought it back and did the newer stuff. I mean, that would have been fun. But I get it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the process of shows and creating stuff. It's like new producers, new production companies, they want to put a new spin on it and change things up for new generations. And I think that's I think that's great. I definitely would have loved to have revisited it down the road. I think there's from going to conventions and talking to fans and hearing people who love the original series. I know for a fact that a lot of them would have loved to have had us finish the story, finish it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that would have been epic.
Yeah, I think that's how most people feel about anything. It's like the Game of Thrones series. I mean, I read the books before I watched the show, and I was actually adamant about not watching the show until I completed the books. And then you kind of go, he's not finishing the books, so I'm not gonna, I'll probably die and he'll die and it'll never be completed. So let's watch the series. So my wife and I watched the series, and and I'm frustrated that he hasn't finished the books. You know what I mean? So I think when you love something and you fall in love with characters and a world and all that stuff, you want to see it play out. You want to, the voices or the storylines that you have followed and dedicated to and enjoyed, you want to see how those finish in the same vein. And so I totally get why fans were disappointed and would have loved it to end. And as a voice actor, and I would have loved that too. But I'm not the one in control.
No. Actually, speaking of, I actually have like a poster. It's right here.
Oh, right on.
Oh, and look who's beside it. Darian.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Right on.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully one day at a convention somewhere, you'll be able to bring that and we'll all sign it or something.
Yeah, that'll be fun. But yeah, I think that's pretty much all that I wanted to ask. So,
Right.
So that's it for episode 3 of Will's interviews, and see you later. Episode 4 is going to be soon, but yeah.
Right on, Will. I appreciate it, man. Thanks so much.
Thank you too. Bye.